Hello and welcome to my channel. Thank you for dropping by. Now, I've been sick for a few days, so I thought doing a medical bay today would be appropriate. I actually haven't done anything in my sketchbook in a good week, so it felt good to get back into it. Uh, yeah, it's not been fun times, but it's good to draw again. So, very rough idea of what I'm going for today. I know I want a medical bay probably in a spaceship, and that it will have a bed somewhere. That's about it. We're going to be doing a 2-point perspective as always, and for convenience I'll always put my left vanishing point on the left page of my drawing here, and I'll put the right one somewhere in the frame. Today I'll also use the occasion to talk about a couple of technical things, mostly how to do curves in perspective and how to use replication methods. Super simple stuff, so if you're interested, stay tuned and we'll be talking about it. So the first thing I'll do is, as always, do a little frame like here. You see me not drawing because I'm busy opening the door for the postman. And once that is done, we'll set up the volume in which we'll be working. Now, I know that I want enough ground floor visible to put my medical bay machine thing. That means we'll put the vanishing points reasonably high. I'm starting by just sketching freehand without placing the points, just to figure out roughly the type of volume I want to be drawing in. So we're gonna time-lapse a little through this until we've set up the volume, and we'll start talking again. Okay, we've got our walls. This will be where the action happens. For once, I'm not putting a wall, visible wall, on the right side. So the wall that we see on the right side of the image here goes further than the field of vision. The thing to do now is figure out where I'm going to be placing that bed. There'll be a little back and forth figuring out proportions, but it's pretty straightforward. I start with the footprint of the bed that you can see here, and from that we'll be drawing a box in which we will fit the bed itself. The bed will be very simple, little stereotypical, but we'll try and make it fun with a little retrofuturism touch. And yeah, so let's build that box, figure out some rough shapes, and get back to it. Okay, you can see the box here. And I've decided that this line in the middle will be roughly waist high for a human. And now I'm just doing a curve. You see, it's half a cylinder roughly. We'll be talking in a moment about how you do these curves in perspective. It's actually quite simple. I'm going to put a foot to this bed, which will be the only part of it that's in contact with the floor. And on the left side of this bed I'll be building up a console in a moment. So let's move ahead a little bit and see what we end up with. So like I was saying, on the left side here you see we've built a little console. Nothing too fancy, room for a keyboard, a couple of straight monitors, and a couple of monitors that are angled down. For the back of it, I decided not to go crazy and just do some kind of a little curve that ends up meeting with the rest of the medical bay. Because sci-fi, we're going to make it transparent and add a little thingy here and there just to make it look more technical than it really is. Okay, talking curves. How do you do a curve in perspective? Now let's imagine we have a plane like this, and we want it to be not a rectangle, but half a circle. Well, join your corners with diagonals like this. Try and do a vertical where they meet. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Then you just draw a curve that goes from that corner to the top on each side. As you see, it's pretty straightforward, and it just works. So if you had a different shape rectangle and you wanted to do a smaller curve on top, do the same, just figure out where you want it to start, join your corners, do a vertical, and do your curve. It looks a bit rough, it looks a bit complicated in the beginning, but with a tiny bit of practice, it really comes quick. There are some great exercises to do curves as well, such as drawing Pringles. I'll try and throw that in one of the next videos. Although people like Product Designer Maker on YouTube does it a lot better than me. So if you're curious about these techniques, check out his channel. He's an excellent resource. So here's how you would draw a circle from a square. Same stuff, no perspective, but you do your diagonals. You do a vertical and a horizontal. And you just draw a circle through these points. There we go. That was hint number 1. Later we'll talk about replication. And so here you see where I used this technique for the curves in the bed here. Yeah. All right. Let's time lapse a little more and see what happens next. All right. Here I'm just doing my good old filling empty spaces. I thought that the left side of the picture here needed something, so we're gonna put some Clark Tech. Basically a machine that looks like it does something, just to fill up that space here and make the volume more interesting. We'll quickly time-lapse through the construction of this because there's nothing really crazy interesting, and we'll get back to it once it's a bit more defined. Okay, you can see that shape here on the left took shape, and I struggled a bit with a couple of things because my brain is still super slow, and I ended up eyeballing the top part of it, but I think it works. So let's bring out the good old ink pen, my trusted Pilot G-Tech, and put some lines on this drawing so it becomes a little clearer. So far there's nothing crazy going on, and well, actually nothing will be crazy in this drawing. It's going to be pretty simple, just getting back into it. So let's do some line work. Gently, calmly, slowly, no rush. And we'll get back to the drawing once it's a bit more inked. Putting in just a little detail here. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with this left machine. Well, machine on the left. I knew I wanted a keyboard, monitors here, so that's done. The angled bit of the ceiling, I wasn't still sure what it was going to be, nor the texture of the walls. But we're going to make it up as we go. This is highly improvised and a good way to flex those creative muscles. So let's keep going through this. So that angled bit in the ceiling, decided to put a big ventilation thing in there and a couple of panels, again just to make the image a little busier. And on the right side I made a recess in the wall which will be used for screens and controls of different kinds. Now we're just going to throw an outline on this. I was not brave enough to get out the brush pen, so we're using the Papermate Flare, which is so easy compared to the brush pen. So there you go. Everything that has empty space behind it will get a nice thick outline. And that's about all there is to it, so let's rush through it. For the textures of the wall, I went back to what I like. So we have a little recess in the wall, and we're just putting straight lines as a pattern. I've kept a little rectangle there that I can use as a poster or a paper with instructions or whatever on it. It helps make the place look a bit more lived in and used. So we're going to go through this, and we're going to be putting details on that console on the right and see what happens. Right, I want to do a series of monitors in the back here, and I want them to be the same size. Now, how do you do that on a wall that's in perspective? Well, let's do a wall or a plane in perspective, and say we want a panel this big, and we want that wall to be all in that kind of panel, and they should all be the same size. Now, again, corner to corner, do your diagonals, and then from the center to your vanishing point, do a straight line. Now all you have to do now is take the corner, up or down, whichever you want, go through that middle point, get it to the line above, and that's it. So basically, you go from an opposite corner, you draw through the line that goes through the center point of your panel, and you go all the way to the top. Where it meets is where your vertical should go. I don't know if I'm saying it very well, but hopefully you can see on the drawing that it's really, really simple. And now you have accurate panels, all the same size, as far as you'd like. Super simple technique, very, 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 very useful. All right, let's get back to the drawing. We put a bit of detail on the machine on the left. We've got the console on the right as well, a few screens. Now let's use the technique that I've just demonstrated here to do our screens. Now I'm freehanding it. You could do it with a ruler, but this is not a technical drawing. This is sketchbook stuff, so I'm thinking let's take it easy. I'm actually far from perfect on what I'm doing here, but it'll be close enough. So, as I said, through the corner, all the way up, through that middle line, and that gives you nice replicated squares. That is the replication method. I hope it's useful. All right, let's time-lapse some more. Okay, we got our monitors in place, we put the screens on, and now we're just doing the texture of the panels behind the bed here. Keeping it simple and coherent with what we've done on the other side. Forgot to mention, but you must have noticed that we've put tiles on the ceiling and floor as well. I think it's always nicer than a plain flat surface. Again, I don't like empty spaces that much. I think it's nice to put ink where there's room for it. So there you go, a little more texture here and there, and I think very soon we're going to be thinking color. And we'll be keeping it pretty simple on this one. So let's move on. Actually, before we talk about color, I'm going to be putting a couple of random shapes in here just to hint that this machine does something. Don't ask me what, but there you go. So just a couple of indents or recesses and angled surfaces that could be some kind of sensor. I imagine maybe somebody would stand in the circle that's on the floor below my hand here and be scanned while standing up. Yeah, that would make sense in the future, right? So there you go. Simple shapes, but they help make the image look more complicated and more practical in some way. So there you go. Simple stuff. We're gonna go back to time-lapse. I know there's a lot of time-lapse, by the way, in these videos, but that was an hour 45 drawing, and I don't think anybody really wants more than 20 minutes of me drawing and rambling along. So I'm trying to keep videos at around the 20-minute mark, which is also why I still haven't posted the two-parter I've been mentioning in the last videos. That's a 4-hour drawing, and I'm really struggling with how to edit it. Maybe I'll try to make actually a longer video to see if you guys would be interested, where we'll talk a bit deeper about techniques and what's happening. Let me know in comments if you'd be interested in something slower with more technical orientated comments. Or if you want to see this sort of thing, or just my good old time lapses with me shutting up and bad music in the background. Let me know in the comments. In the meantime, let's move on. Okay, let's bring the color out. We're going to be using some, what were they? These are Copics, and they are cool grays. This is a cool gray 1. And I'm not going to go and do a direct light source that's very obvious on the drawing. I wanted to keep it simple. I'm still getting back into this after a week of not drawing. So the only true indication of light that we'll be doing is making the screens reasonably bright and throwing a cast shadow of the bed on the floor. But there'll be no visible light source on this one, and we're going to take it easy with the gradients. So anyway, we're going to be using this cool gray 1 here, and I think I'll be using a cool gray 5 for the ceiling and a cool gray 3 for the walls. So only 3 shades of gray, if we don't count the cool gray 7 that I'll be using for the cast shadow. So here it's all about having the ceiling as the darkest bit of the image, and then I'll decide where what the light is roughly coming from, which I think is the monitors, and that means that the surfaces that are facing us in this drawing will be darker than the ones away from us. It'll become clearer as I stop talking and the drawing gets built up a little. So here we go. So here's what I just meant, saying that the surfaces facing us will be darker than whatever is facing upwards or facing towards the monitors. I could have gone a little darker on this. Maybe I will. Try to do a gradient, but I wasn't stoked with it, so I won't go crazy on the light in this one. So again, basically 2 markers, well 3 maybe, but we're principally going to be using the 3 and the 5 here to fill up these surfaces. Let's go. I did want to make the glass pop out a little, so here I'm using some cool bluish grays from Style File. It's I think it's a 6, a 4, and a 2 on top here, just to do a little bit of a gradient here on the plexiglass or whatever it is, and break the very gray tone in this image, make it pop out a little bit. So I'm just doing this on all the glass surfaces here, including the little one on the left here that you can see that is still white. And that's about it for color. The rest now is about making the monitors super light shade of this bluish gray. And then we're going to be throwing in an eyeballed cast shadow. Let's go. I do like using the pencil again here just to figure out where the cast shadows will be roughly. And again, there are methods to do this right, and I'm not using them because I'm lazy and tired. So I'm trying to eyeball it. I think I get away with it. Ish. So there you go. We're just doing the outline of that shadow, and we're going to be filling it with this cool gray 7, which is the darkest tone we'll be using on this image, because your cast shadow should always be the darkest tone. So let's fill this up. Alright, we have our shadow with a very rough core shadow into it, which I can see I should do a little better. I guess I'll give it a touch up in my sketchbook. And now, while I'm obviously doing something else, here we go. We're bringing out some highlights. I'm starting to really like this pencil. Again, product designer maker on YouTube suggested it. It's a Stabilo Carbotello titanium white, and it's extremely chalky in nature, and that means you can have quite a lot of control with it. You can smudge it, you can make very fine lines, or you can make something very blurry. It's quite versatile. I like it very much. So anyway, anything that's facing the monitors, all the angles that are facing the monitors here are going to get a little highlight, as well as some kind of a more discrete one on other surfaces. It just helps make the drawing, well, the material in the drawing come out Anything that's plastic, metal just really shines with this. It's a simple trick. Experience with it. That pen is actually great for experimenting. Sorry, because you can correct it. You can fade it out if you put it too much or in the wrong place, as opposed to a good old Posca pen, which has a very thick, very opaque paint in it. Now, when you put that one down, you're pretty much stuck with it. So, I highly recommend those pencils if you want to experiment with highlights. So here we're going to be throwing the last details left and right. Not much to say. The drawing is pretty much done at this point. So there you go. Back in the sketchbook. After a hell of a week. Just putting a little shadow here and there using the number 5. To give it a little depth to the image. These little shadows go a long way, I think, in making the image stand out. But yeah, there you go. Here's another video. Rushed as always, improvised as always. I don't write up anything before I do these. These are spur of the moment thing. I would love all the comments you can give me, all the feedback. Yeah, so I can take it into account for future videos. And yeah, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up on Patreon, hit me up here, and let me know what you think. And we'll try and make these better and better. So, I'll leave you to this. Thank you so much for dropping by. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It really helps more than you know. And yeah, have a good week, great week. See you on the next one.